recording is on. Okay, we're on. So do you want to introduce it here?
Good morning, everybody. It's the Eastern meeting, the Extinctionati meeting, which must be about 93 now. I think we're getting into. It's Sunday, January the 9th. And yeah, let's begin. So on the agenda today is to talk about some topics that Gary raised. One of the first ones is why we piss everybody off. It's mainly me that pisses everybody off. Yeah, we have a long hit record, and so the first point of discussion is Paul Kingsnorth, who just waved us off. Yeah, so yeah, what should we say? So a batting record is not good. It's like with Allison batted us off. Darren did a bit. Guy McPherson did. The reason for the Guy McPherson one was because I refused to remove negative comments on the interview with him. So he said, did a long email exchange, about 50 emails, and then said, threatened legal action, because I didn't remove the comments. And they weren't that bad. There was nothing really bad. It's just very strange. So anyway, that was him a while back. But anyway, that's the way it goes. Yeah, what do people think? I mean, we're dealing with egos. Everybody's got an ego, and it takes a bit of ego to start making videos. I'm talking from experience. It's a lot of hard work. I don't think people realize it. Unless you actually made videos and stuck them out there and done all this, you don't realize how much hard work actually it is. So you have to be motivated by something, and most people are motivated by ego.
Can I say something about this? Because I think what I noticed is that the exchanges I had with Paul by email for the last year or two were always very cordial until he turned more mediatic about his faith, and I think from then on he started to become much more defensive. I watched quite a few of his interviews, not only the one that we posted on the sub, and he seems to be selecting who he's talking to. He seemed to be promoting a lot of his new stuff, and I yes, you are right about the ego. I think also, I think he only wants to talk to people who kind of comfort him and make him feel good about what he's doing. So I was quite surprised that he wouldn't want to engage with us. Now, I never came forward with any of our manifestos and company and things like that. I just, I contacted him as a writer and as a guy I respected. He's a very good writer. So I think that he must have been looking at our videos or reading our sub, because there was no other places where we talked about him in recent time about his Christianity. So I think he has actually, whatever, it doesn't matter if he doesn't want to interact with us, he's looked at our stuff, and it seemed like it was like sulfur for him. He was not happy that I didn't, for the people who didn't read the emails there, but he was not happy that I didn't engage with him saying that we were, that we didn't agree with him. That's basically that. I think that was this big thing, because otherwise I'd say he wouldn't have had a problem, because up until yesterday he was ready to talk to us. And I think he must have done a bit of research on us, looked at who we were, and I think it would have not been good online for him to talk to us. And it was the same with Alison, because Alison's thought also that it was not good for her audience to see her interacting with people like us. So we have a bad reputation. Yeah.
I think we should try keep it up. I think he read comments that I did about him, and I think he got a bit triggered, because in that email that he sent back to you, he referred to a few things which I said. So I think he must have looked at the post. But I mean, from my point of view, I think that, you know, I put those posts in there in public with the expectation that he sees them. I wouldn't try to hide them. I didn't think that he wouldn't see them. Yeah, it's.
On another positive, I got a contact yesterday from the Irish delegate for Deep Green Resistance, and she is happy to talk to us on the week starting on the 17th of January. So I've yet to decide of a day and a time with her. So I will probably send an email around to see that the time and day is okay for everybody before I confirm with her. And I'd say that would be interesting. So that's the next interview. But I would be interested to hear what people have to say, and you in particular, Hugh, about what, following the thoughts of Gary, about like, what are we looking for when we interview people? What is it, you know, what is behind all this? Why are we getting such a reaction? And what should we pursue people who, you know, what way should we do that? Discuss that. I'd like to discuss that.
Yeah, there's a new guy on the block, which Sandy Shellis and them new Duma on the block. There's Professor Elliott's, can't remember what his name is, but anyway, I posted the video up there, but maybe we should get him. But yeah, yeah, what's the point of interviewing people? Well, it's just I think it's just for our own personal development. But I think these days I'm thinking, you know, we should start spreading the word about the flippening and that kind of thing. So maybe we should gear it towards that. So, you know, I would like to do things like scientific things, so people talk about the science of it. You never get I mean, I never get anything much out of it. Talking to these you know, talking head guys who well known, I mean, I think they're selling kind of sympathy and, you know, often a bit of hopium and stuff like that. So it's you're supposed to do all these interviews and stuff just to keep up your viewership, but you know, I mean, but unless it's really enlightening people, I think it goes round and round in circles. They always come to the same conclusions. It's like, you know, it's when I hear all this stuff, it's like people post stuff and say, they all like, hey, look at this, you know. And I'm like saying, yeah, everybody's saying the same darn thing. It's just going nowhere. What's the point of this? So I think that the first, you know, new thing out there that anybody said on this subject is what we're saying in the manifesto about the flipping. But otherwise, it's all, everybody's pregnant with this change. You know, everybody's, you know, like, oh, things are about to change. We're at a crossroads, and so like, yeah, everybody knows that. Now what? no one gets beyond that in the conversation, and we're trying to open up this new conversation. But I don't know. I get the impression that everybody's stuck going around in circles, and we're the only ones moving ahead. I think maybe we should just forge ahead and just see who falls in line. You know, who.
But I think we've got the same problem that we also discussed with Faulty. And just as an aside there, I think we have to award Faulty the full credit for being probably the only one that we ever spoke to who really obviously listened and let himself be challenged by that. It really took on what we said at depth. You know, I think he was the only one who really clearly displayed that he was doing that. I don't think anybody else did. But what I want to say was just, you made the comment in the manifesto there towards the end about people not changing. And I replied to that, you know, specifically about Paul Kingsnorth, that it applies to a lot of people who have got an established way of operating and certain people following them, or they've written books and they've got a reputation and all this kind of thing. They've got too much invested in a certain way. It's certainly to let themselves be challenged and put in a strange position in public. I mean, you might find if you could talk to Paul Kingsnorth privately, just as one person to another, that the situation could be quite different. But what I'm thinking is that maybe it's not a fruitful exercise to be pursuing people with some kind of a profile that maybe it's a small pond that doesn't have much effect on the world, but just talking to fairly unknown people, because they're the ones who can they can let themselves be challenged. Where's the embarrassment? Nobody knows who the fuck they are. They're not trying to uphold anything. They're not having their career or their whatever it is, the curriculum vitae or whatever it is, challenged. They're not. There's not this structure to defend. So there's that, and I think there's two things regarding us. One is that you can be pretty devastatingly blunt, and now I think that's good. It's good and bad. I mean, it's good because we should compromise, and if something is what it is, it should be said for what it is. And you don't shy away from doing that. And also, this is from the spiritual point of view. This is what any guru would do, that he won't compromise the truth for anyone's feelings. If a thing has to be said, it has to be said. Um, uh, um, so that's and I noticed that specifically last week. I think we were talking about how you'd written a little mini essay there on Klaus Schwab and Paul Kingsnorth, and I made the comment that when I read that, if you had removed the two names and asked me to fill them in again, I would have put them in the reversed place, and then we had a discussion about why I would have got it wrong and what you actually meant, which wasn't clear to me at the time, and it probably certainly wouldn't have been clear to somebody like Paul either, I imagine. But this is where when you made some statements, they probably need to be explained with the action at the time you actually make the statement, to stop people getting you wrong, rather than just letting it hang in the air. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, which was the aspect of Hugh and how Hugh comes across. The second thing is the aspect of how we come across, and maybe just as we might have to accept that the only people we're going to be able to have a sort of real heart conversation with are people who are less well known, we might also have to start looking at ourselves and just admitting that to most people we're just nut jobs. We're just and we're going to have to accept that that's how we come across. And I felt that reading the manifesto, because as well written as it was and thorough and all the rest of it, when I looked at it, it seemed unavoidably still to have the tone of so many things you can read on the internet, which are just pretty fanciful, really, but they can be written up to sound quite plausible, with in the same style that you've done. And I thought, well, sure, you've tried to do a thorough, conscientious job of it and all the rest of it. But to anyone who's coming to this for the first time, they're just saying, "Oh my God, another whack job story," because it can unfortunately too easily read like that. So they're both. I'll keep quiet now, because it's really just the 2 points. Is your fairly blunt statements, which I think might need qualifying at times, and us just having to put up with. We're just going to have to be whack jobs, and that's it, and just, if people are willing to come on and join us for a bit of fun in our little circus, that's great, but we're probably relying on people who come to us rather than trying to draw people. Because you look at the people who are here now, they're here because they want to be, because they've listened to something and they picked up the vibe and they thought, hang on, there's something here. I'm going to stick with this for a little while. Like they haven't been convinced by and somebody said you really should go over there and listen to these people because blah blah blah. But I don't think that's the case. I think most of them have probably just come because they've caught the scent of something, and it resonates with something in them, and they've come by a natural process. You know, rather than this sort of uphill battle of trying to win people over, Alison and Darren and Spencer and not only those, but to all of this substantially larger list of people who never even either never replied to invitations or just said no immediately without even, anyway, sorry, I said I was going to keep quiet.
Yeah, no, I always thought that we should never fight coming across as wackos. I always took it as read that we should, just be wacko and assume everybody thinks we're complete cranks and nut jobs, which we are. I mean, the point is that we're fulfilling a role, and the role is the role of the fool. So we're talking to mental people. I mean, it's how do you talk to people that are utterly fucking barking mad and don't know it, and living in an upside down world, and you have to approach them like a crazy person. It's like 12 Monkeys and the character. What's the posing character from Bruce Willis, the guy in the middle.
I don't know it that well. Somebody else might know it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Brad Pitt?
Brad Pitt, yeah. So we're doing the Brad Pitt character, and so yeah. I think that I never tried to hide the fact that we're cranks. I thought you can't convey this kind of information without being a crank. So you shouldn't fight it. I mean, it's much worse to come across try and be serious and then everybody finds out later, but hang on a minute, you're just a bunch of cranks. It's much better to come in as a crank and then
but I mean,
hang on, there's something to this. These guys are. So the idea is ambiguity more than anything, and I tried to.
But see, the thing is, you
don't
lose.
Really know where I'm coming from.
You lose very straight people like Paul Kingsnorth straight away. With that, you're not going to get them immediately just on account of that. They're not going to want to participate in that kind of thing. Like he's got a very.
I never thought we should. I mean, the part of it is to deliberately. I mean, I spend a lot of time trying to filter those kind of people out. So, I mean, the pity of people like Paul Kingsnorth is he's got a brain, and he understands the problem. So that, and the same with Alison is that, well, she's funny, but she's got the. I mean, they understand the problem, and so they're worthwhile. It pains me from that point of view that here these people that actually get it, and then the next step is things like dandelions and peace and stuff, and it's like, come on. It's so frustrating that they can actually get it, but I think what we should do is just forge ahead and get noticed. So in other words, do like an AMA and just basically just do standard marketing of the whole the whole idea of the flipping, and with the aim of getting to kind of flat Earth status. And then when you are flat Earth status, if we can, it's just a crapshoot. If somebody picks it up and you get noticed, then all these other types will come and approach us to debunk us and argue against it. You see, if it gets popular, then everybody wants to get on the bandwagon and try and nail a flat earther. But we should try and deliberately get to that status where people come to us, and so we we are almost there. I mean, I like the farm podcasts, and there's another podcast guy who wants to interview me. And I said, well, here, I'm just about to finish the manifesto. So read the manifesto first, and then we'll do the interview. But I think we should go for those kind of things and just build up our own status. And then all the talking heads will be forced to respond. But
That's
if you try and work off their reflected glory, it doesn't really work. But I mean, I think of us as we absurdist terrorists, and we're playing the role of the fool, and that role requires you to be ridiculous and be a crank, but also with slightly ambiguous. You don't know with. So I hoped I got that across in the manifesto. It didn't. I thought it wasn't all crank stuff because I put in like humor and stuff right from the start. So people don't know. Whether is this a joke? And so that's exactly what the tone I was trying to strike is. You don't know whether it's a joke or it's supposed to be ridiculous. It's just if people are taking it seriously. Exactly. It's the first time people think in their fucking lives.
I think your attitude reflects exactly what I think. I think that the fact that we are living, I mean, the definition of sane and insane is so much at the core of how we interact with people at the moment in this situation with the COVID, etc. So I think this attitude of coming out with our stuff as passing for crazy people, nuts and everything, is the best thing we can do. And that was my state of mind when I was interacting with Paul. I was trying to continue on this tone with him, but we're interacting with people who are driven by a strong alien cortex, a lot of logic, a lot of scientifical and intellectual and also religious background, and we need to keep where we are and certainly not join the cohort of rational speakers that are all over the internet, collecting more and more viewers because they're following the narrative that we don't believe in. And yeah, your attitude is 100%. I think the gesture is the way to go for our little group. You know. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, we're hecklers. We're not supposed to take the mic and give discourses and try and be learned and get everybody to, say that, oh, these guys are the real McCoy. I mean, anybody that likes authoritarians is never going to be interested in us because we're just unusual and we're challenging. But that's our role. Our role is to be wacky, unusual, and challenging. So we're terrorists. Oops, that's got
And
a
we need
trigger.
to disturb. We need to just disturb, to be there just as a nuisance, really. Like a thorn. And I think that's why we get this reaction from a lot of people, because they get this kind of, because they don't lift up they don't take the glove. They don't want to interact because we are doing something
We,
somewhere.
we, we're
We're
random. We're dangerous, and
yeah,
that's
maybe that's what they sense. And
yeah, they do. I mean, it's like, look, we're in a prison yard, and anybody knows you don't tackle the mad bastard in the corner of the prison yard, and we are that. We that is, I think, what we want to be. But that's what's it's the Socratic role, and it's a sacred role. Socrates said he was the gadfly. So it's like, you know, we the gadfly of the gadfly. It's like, I mean, uh, XR said that they were the gadfly on power, and yeah, and saying like, well, yeah, but that's taking yourself a little bit too serious as well. So we're the gadfly on the gadfly. But yeah, everybody takes themselves so fucking seriously. It's like this is not a good attitude to prepare yourself for what's coming. What's coming is incredible shit. We're on the Titanic, right? This is going to be ugly, and so and the time is very very short. You don't have time to sit around preening yourself and doing these lovely ornate illuminated manuscript type creative writing with dripping with truthiness that, you know, somebody can just sample it and be, oh, I'm enlightened by the elixir of Darren or Paul Kingsnorth. It's basically, it's like emergency surgery time. You know, it's basically very, very short. If you're going to reach enlightenment now, it's hack surgery on your alien cortex. So you got to start the meatball surgery, man. It's not all this finessing and beautiful stuff, and it's evil. It's chloroform. See, one of the things that I didn't labor too much in the manifesto, but I think we're going to have to go over all this territory. Is all of the dangers? I mean, our aim is to survive what's coming. And if you're going to survive that, these guys are poison. I mean, the Christians and stuff like that, that's chloroform on the road. These guys are carpetbaggers, man. They're going to put, they're putting intellectual chloroform on people just as we're about to go through the worst shit humanity's ever seen. And these people are going to be sitting in the park in a circle singing Kumbaya and taking Kool-Aid. You do not want to go near these people. And so, but Joe didn't like, oh yeah, I wanted to get an okay from everybody to actually reply to Kingsnorth. I want to just put a post in XR Med to just respond to him and just really kind of flame him because Joe didn't like the sound of that. But it said this, kind of alien cortex against alien cortex, which is absolutely correct. It's alien cortex against alien cortex. I think the thing that Joe missed is it's not ego against ego, right? It's not our ego against, it's Paul Kingsnorth that's against his ego for sure, but it's not ego on our side. So we're a cult, right? And a cult, part of a cult is to establish the in-group and the out-group. And, part of the value of interacting with people like this is to establish that they're the out-group and establish why. So that everybody can see that, this is, it's part of egregore building. But we're building up the ego of the Extinctionati in a way. It's a con game because our ultimate aim is to get rid of all egos. So, but you have to, as I said many times, you have to do this fake psychotherapy thing, this kind of counterintuitive thing.
I think Joe's point was that we were having a private conversation by email, and he thought that publishing the direct email and the interaction was probably not correct. But that doesn't stop us, and I agree with him to a certain extent. That doesn't stop us from, or you, to write something about the fact that we tried to interact with somebody who was doing it's like the engineers that we talk about who try to apply the solution to the climate crisis. We have a religious person who's trying to apply his solution to first his problems, but certainly our situation, completely negating that our work ethic and our way of thinking comes from old monastic religious ways of thinking that have brought us here in the first place. So that's where I wanted to challenge him. But I mean, if you can write something, I think maybe we should abstain from using his private emails, because I mean, it's not really good to do that. It's not good policy. I think. What do other people think about this?
I think we've just kind of muddied the water a little bit because of that very frank thing that Hugh wrote on XR Med, which is because the things on XR Med are sort of, in a way, they're kind of semi-private communication because it's just really the select group who look at that. And so, if Kingsnorth was to see something like that, he'd think we were talking about him behind his back, even though it is publicly available, but you need to know that it's there. I think just going back to what Hugh said, the problem with so many of these people, you were talking about the intellectual chloroform, and I think a lot of these people, they get so far and they can't take the final step. you know, sort of fall back rather than grappling with what's involved with their awakening. I noticed that with that William Rees talk that was on, and he was amazing. But then again, you know, right near the end, he goes, "Oh, but we can have a planned economic and population contraction." And I thought, "Oh my God." He says all this stuff that makes perfect sense, and then right at the end, he just throws it all down the drain by making a statement like that. In other words, he's got 99% of his journey accomplished. Then at the last minute, he just turns aside and just won't go through to the logical conclusion. You know that no, look, we're definitely stuffed, and you know, so therefore a radically different perspective on this is required. But that's I think we talked about it before. You know, is it a crisis of imagination that the people just turn aside for want of they turn aside at the last minute for want of being able to conceive of any other way of approaching existence? Sorry, I'm not explaining that well. You know,
No,
they haven't
it's
got.
much worse. It's much worse than that. It's all of this is about the alien cortex and the death of the alien cortex. So what the alien cortex does is, at the moment of enlightenment, where it will die, it does anything. It does absolutely anything to survive. So it's the ultimate trickster, weasel, you know, snake in the grass. And so that people, it kind of wants death. It's Thanatos, and then it wants life at the same time as Eros. And so it's continually this jockeying between the two, that you know, it's kind of the curiosity killed the cat. So it's kind of curious and it wants to know more. And then it starts to learn, oh my God, we're fucked. It's confronted with its death. And then it does this U-turn and the substitution and all those things that I say slip in. So it inverts the situation. It substitutes the scapegoat. It's all this sacrifice and stuff that is done in religion is saying, here, take this goat, take this child, take this wealth or something, take anything other than me. It's trying to negotiate with death as if it's some kind of warlord or something like that, some kind of strong man. And so that's what it does. So in the case of someone like Kingsnorth, to give him his due, this is not easy stuff, right? I mean, it pains me. People like Kingsnorth pain me because they have the capacity to reach enlightenment, but they're not going to do it because they're cowards. They're fucking cowards. I mean, it's not to be too harsh, but it's very hard, especially if you have kids, to face your own death. So if you look at Kingsnorth, he does Dark Mountain, all of that. Dark Mountain is a cry of pain. But in case you guys don't get it, Dark Mountain is Golgotha. Dark Mountain is Calvary. He knows he's going to be crucified on Dark Mountain, but he can't stay away from it. He makes the Dark Mountain part. He's following Christ's footsteps. This is all. It was very. It came across quite starkly in the Adam Curtis thing, about transhumanism. And it was a very good thing, but he went a lot into Hamilton and Price. Do you remember that thing? And Price, where there was an exquisite piece in it. Well, I thought it was exquisite, but it was Price's daughter. Adam Curtis was interviewing. Now I'm going to have to put the fucking link in there. But anyways, Adam Curtis was interviewing Price's daughter. And Price is reading this this letter. She's reading this letter from her father. And he's going psychotic. He's going Christian and going psychotic. This is good, right? This is, if it wasn't done in a Christian mode, it could be youth psychosis. He could actually basically break through to the other side. But he's not going to make it. Price doesn't make it. Why? Because of this Christian bullshit. So she, the bit in the movie is she reads the letter and it says, you know, like he's saying, you know, about this bit about the hounds of heaven. And she goes like, that's just like him, you know, what is even the hounds of heaven? And Adam Curtis immediately comes in there and says, the hounds of heaven is this poem by Chesterton. I can't remember who it was, but anyway, what the hounds of heaven is about this Christianity thing. I mean, surely you've felt the draw of Christianity, that it's so nice and sweet and easy. You could just give into this myth of Father Christmas, basically this imaginary friend in the sky, and you could, that's so warm and cuddly and stuff, and it's just the chloroform that you just go for, right? It's like giving up and just basically going to sleep in the grass, beautiful, and so it's terribly attractive, but it's a makya of the worst sort. And what Price does in the end is Price is ultimately, this is a personification of death, right? So the hounds of heaven are, the hounds of just giving up on the struggle of life and having, just going into the night. And so Price eventually, I mean, it's a fabulous story because it's all about, do we have free choice, or is it all just dominated by our selfish genes? Are we just a vehicle for our selfish genes? Price and Hamilton are the neo-Darwinists, along with Dickie Dawkins, that popularized this idea that the unique element that survives, the soul, in other words, that survives for eternity, is really our genes. And it's just using our body and brain and stuff just to propagate itself. That's it. And so if you take that conception, then it made a crisis of psychosis for Price. And so he got more and more into the Christian thing. What he's romancing is death. And then eventually he cuts his own artery with nail scissors. And the guy who, in the interview with Adam Curtis, he gives the reason why that guy had a lot of perception. And it was because that's the ultimate expression of free will. To say, because God wouldn't want you to cut your artery, and your genes would be fatal for you to do that. So it was an ultimate expression of victory over, all these forces that control you. But here, look how sick it is. It's his alien cortex that wants to establish itself as undying and to show defiance in the face of this, of his approaching death, which he calls God. And it's the same in Kingsnorth's way. You can see in his writing, he can feel the hounds of heaven. It's very difficult to accept your death, or this coming collapse, because he's got young kids. He can see the system for what it is. He knows, that it's a death camp. He, just like Jesus, knew that the Roman world in that time was a freaking death camp. And so he's creeping towards like giving up, just going into the night. And why go through this big bother? And that's what Christianity is. It's saying like, just give up, just go on the cross, come up to Jesus, and you'll have eternal, end the struggle. That's all it's about. But it's an abomination. We're not about that. We're about life and continuity of life. So the Extinctionati is about not going extinct. But all these guys will pursue death. They're pursuing the personification of death. The God of the Bible, Yahweh and stuff, he's the guy with the scythe. He's Saturn. He's Kronos. He represents death. And so all of this is a big song and dance, until you give yourself up to death. And it's like, it's hideous. We're team human. We're all about life. We're about escaping the fucking scythe, not giving up to it. But the irony of it, if your alien cortex wins, like it did in Price's case, it will snuff you out. That's what I tried to say in the manifesto, is our biggest danger is that on a large scale, is the cutting of the artery with the nail scissors on a global scale. There are a lot of guys who have, finger on the red button. People like Biden. I mean, can you imagine Biden has the fate of the humanity? I posted that thing about cobalt bombs. That's in the hands of a cretin that you can't even stay awake in a climate conference, which is all about waking humanity up. Guys like Putin are psychopaths. Guys like Xi Jinping, which is a walking monster. And like, these guys have this power at their fingertips. You think they won't fucking use it to prove a point like Price did on himself? It all depends on how big their ego is, right? So Xi Jinping's ego is the size of China. If Xi Jinping goes down, will he take China with him? Sure he will. So if one of these guys gets supreme power, messianic power, like Klaus Schwab would want, right? It's like, if one of those guys gets that kind of power, when they go, you'll all go. We'll all go. I mean, go back to the Ming emperors and the guys. What's the guy buried in China with the terracotta army? I can't remember who his name was. But anyway, if you have a look at that story, you know what those terracotta guys were, basically all these guys that should have been entombed with him, right? He's a great emperor. They should have been entombed. You can see what happened. Is they said, I know, instead of me actually being covered in gravel, how about I just make a nice terracotta effigy of myself and pay for it and substitute, alien cortex substitution. And so they must have got away with it, because now there are thousands and thousands of terracotta soldiers and stuff. But what they must have been doing was doing a proxy for themselves, because in tombs from pharaohs to emperors and stuff, they demand that their people die with them. They're in the mind of a psychopath. These people are sheep. They're just extensions, limbs of themselves. So when they die, look, think about it. When you die, do you like the thought of your arm living on? If your arms are, I'm going to die, but my arm's going to be severed and it's going to crawl about for the rest. It's a creepy idea. You'd say, no, I want that arm to die with me. That's how they think in terms of nations. That's how they think in terms of the whole of humanity. It's terribly dangerous, because we need some part of humanity to survive, right? And make it through. We're the seed that makes it through. Or if not, try. We're one of the butterflies that flap its wings and try to make it through. So it's like somebody should make it through. Consciousness is far too precious to snuff it out on some Christian myth. Right? It's like it's way more important that humanity lives on to experience life and to propagate and have more children. But if you get stuck in your own little Kingsnorth world with a couple of kids and stuff, then it's like that's the whole kingdom of heaven, and you just that's all that's important. So then you get these silly notions like Christ and people in the sky, like there's a big man in the sky and you can read about him in the Bible. It's like, this is horseshit. You can't give up on the pain of that. Look, collapse is terrible. Our civilization is wonderful. I mean, I hate to say it on the record, but look what we've done. Look what we've achieved. It's wonderful, it's glorious, and it's utterly, utterly stupid. So it's fantastic. It's a fantastic play. And to end it, because you just can't take the pain, it's not us. It's just not us. Right? So it's just like, but these people must be challenged with what they're doing, because if we're all on the Titanic, or these people that go, that get that this ship's going down. Okay, the vast majority of people, they don't fucking get it. Only one or two know, oh shit, this is going to be real bad. This ship is going to sink. And the vast majority of people are all just playing and, farting around, and they trust all the crew. Or read the body language of the crew. This ship ain't going to float much longer. Just look at their fucking body language, dudes. And but everybody's partying and stuff like that. Well, but on the Titanic, if you see people that know that the ship's going down, and then they go and hide in a cabin, which is kind of what XR and stuff is doing. I think Faulty's doing it to a certain extent. Is they go and try and find a waterproof cabin on the Titanic, and then say like, "Well, I'm in a waterproof cabin, so I'm okay." It's like, no, this ship together. You can't let people get away with that kind of ignorance, because that's the kind of ignorance that's going to cost every man on this ship.
You know what you're saying reflects very much the conclusion of the last email that we will not. Well, I've sent it to everybody here, so everybody here is free to read it on their email. But the last phrase of that last email that we told me not to write back is, "I can see why the demands of Christianity make you uncomfortable," and that just made it. The demands of Christianity make me uncomfortable. I mean, that's it. What can you say there? Like, you're just in front of somebody who's got not only a waterproof cabin, but a padded cabin with a torture machines inside, like, because the demands,
Yeah, it's got a fucking halo on it. No?
Yeah,
It's like,
I remember.
I've got my waterproof cabin and a fucking halo, and that, you know, that it drips with, you know, basically misanthropy, which I think he accuses us of. But it's just this frozen chosen thing is just horrible, man. It's bad for the person and it's bad for everybody else. But you see, if you don't challenge them, if you do kind of what Joe said, and you be polite and you allow people their foibles, and so if you say, no, this game is far too serious for that. It's like, if you allow them their foibles, they are not neutral. They recruit him. See what they're doing. People like Kingsnorth is he's writing for his own satisfaction, of course, and it's kind of palliative, but he's also recruiting. He's also basically getting a cult right together. So, but you know, it's like the communists. They wheedle up to you and say, you know, like, oh, you know, Karl Marx was actually an environmentalist. You're like, what the fuck? Was like, Karl Marx was actually vegan, and you go, for fuck's sake, fuck off. And then they quickly scamper off. You see, they do that online. There's a big recruiting campaign from all the communists. They do that all over the place. They sidle up to people, you know, and they know that if they start a debate or anything like that, it triggers the algorithm, and then, you know, communism gets a lot of so they quickly scurry off. But the Christians do it too. They do this kind of weaselly little, you know, try it on. That's psychopathic behavior. That's what psychopaths do. It's like, can I push your buttons? Let me try this one. Let me, response. Ooh. And they might as well be putting fucking electrodes in your head and stimulating you. It's fucking evil what these Christians and these people are doing. So it's like, you know, the truth of it is what I said in the manifesto is everything's a cult, right? Everybody's recruiting for their vehicle, and so you can't go around slapping people's hands and saying bad Christian, bad communist. It's like they are trying to build their own egregore. It is the superorganism trying to integrate itself on a large scale. But you know, Klaus Schwab is doing exactly the same thing. The one world and stuff. It's this. They just have different versions of the superorganism, and so you can't fight it head on by trying to block them. The only way I think you can do it is what we're doing, and that's basically you make an alternative cult that challenges other people. Because if you have your own cult and that stands in opposition, you know, in the marketplace of cults and egregores, it stands as a challenge to all these other mega formations of the human mind. All of these formations, all of these hive minds and meta minds and stuff, and you know, all these guys doing in the intellectual dark web, doing sense making. They're also doing an egregore. Sense making means, you know, getting all this kind of like-minded thought. It is this expanded consciousness trying to, you know, get to human consciousness, exactly like Ken Wilber and all these woo-woo Eckhart Tolle and all these guys. Everybody can feel us integrating in this expanded consciousness, but like this is dangerous, people. This is fucking dangerous. This talk about unity and stuff is poison, because what it means is we all go down. This ship is going down, right? So if if you go for this big woo-woo thing with everybody's all brothers and sisters and the lion lies down with the lamb, when the lion lies down with the lamb, that's the end of the fucking story. You do not want the lion to lie down with the lamb. All these guys like John Bendel and Kingsnorth and that, they're all getting to this thing where they themselves are reconciling all these parts within themselves. They're not reconciling themselves with the truth, which means reconciling themselves with death. They're reconciling lies. They're getting all the lies internally to shake hands. That's an abomination. It's a substitution for real enlightenment. In real enlightenment, you really challenge each one of these domains of disagreement and these cognitive dissonances that you have until they actually have, one beats the other, right? That is the correct transformation. It's not good to have all these dissonances and that you allow them to shake hands. So this is a difficult concept because in the bigger scheme of things, in say a tribal level or population level, we need tribes. We need tribalism. It's good. It stops pandemics. It means there's diversity. It means that nature has a lot of spins of the dice, right? But you need to integrate yourself in a whole at the individual level. So to get to Jungian kind of individuation, you need a reconciliation of opposites. But not by some entente cordiale or some kind of fraud. You actually have to fight it out. Make the different ideas in your own head, the different personalities inside you, fight it out until you reach the truth. The reconciliation of these opposites is an abomination. That's what your alien cortex is doing to make sure that you never defeat it, that it never gets extinguished as an individual ego. So you want extinction of the individual ego so that you can accept your fate as part of the bigger whole, as part of nature and earth, and a mortal that dies, right? That's the goal. But you don't want yourself to stay an individual. You don't want to die an individual with a fucking halo. That's an abomination. That's what your alien cortex wants you to do, to die like Christ, but cutting your artery. It's like that's the epitome of evil. That goes against life. Life's a struggle, and the struggle continues. But you can only face the struggle and enjoy the game once you've actually died, And all these people are trying not to die, but they're not living. They're not living because they've substituted their life for just a struggle not to die. It's like, that's not living. All the people in Britain today are just trying not to die. And they're not living. That's not living. If you go into the metaverse, it's just basically soporific. So it's trying to stop you facing your mortality. And so, it's just another attempt not to die. And it's like, no, the way to do it is to die, and die early. You're supposed to die in your teens. It's supposed to be an initiation rite. But you see, there's always the substitute. You see, it's a real death. It's a very real death in a very real sense. It's very close to a physical death. As close as makes no difference. But you see, the alien cortex comes along with the Christian thing and substitutes, say, baptism. And then it's a symbolic death. And so that's not fucking good enough. Don't substitute Christian rebirth and a rebirth in Christ and stuff. No. real solid fucking death with the Extinctionati Desiderata number 8, which is you don't actually do it physically. So you get to exactly where Price got to, even if it means putting the scissors up against your artery. But you remember Desiderata number 8 at that point, and you do not do any physical injury. But that's the point you want to get to. You want to get to that point where you're ready to do it, and then you'll see the light. But yeah, Christians are evil. I must do a lot more on this. I've had a lot of material that are building up for a video on exactly this topic, but I've held back on it because you get such a bad reaction from, you just basically hemorrhage viewers. So
Yeah,
this will hemorrhage viewers.
but
Well,
why approach it like that, as saying they're evil? I mean, what's happening here is they're failing to grasp the spiritual point. It's the miss, it's the sin, and yet, in a certain sense, I'm just taking on that feeling that Joe must have had, because you can have your tirade against Christianity as being evil, but it kind of gets people's response, and as you're just saying, they'll just go, or they'll write you off. That it might be better to put the effort into getting them to see what they've missed, because that's terribly difficult. I mean, we live in a time
No,
where
they
that.
know. They know what they miss. That's why it's evil.
I
You
wonder
see,
whether they
the
do.
reason why they run, the reason why people will listen to this, and many people will run, is because they know what I'm saying. It's only the dumb ones, in a certain respect, that hang around. You have to be a little bit dumb to get enlightened. The really smart ones can smell it,
Yeah,
and they run.
yeah. I don't know whether they can smell it literally enough. They just say they're aware of some kind of danger or some kind of threat, and they run. But if you ask them what it was, I don't think they will be able to tell you.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
would
No,
just.
no. It's not. Yeah, it's subliminal, right?
Yeah, but this is what I mean. I think you have to. The purpose of the exercise is to bring that out so that it's quite clear what you're talking about. Um,
Well, it's an art. You see, you kind of bug it either way. You see, this is we've been through this before. I think we went through this with Lady Ella, and I think
well, we've
Hank
been through it.
also challenged me on this. Is like you're kind of screwed if you pussyfoot around. You're gonna. What this is sacrificing the bull, right? This is the Mithraeus tauroctomy. That bull is your alien cortex, right? So and the sword is Price's sword, right? It's Price's nail clippers. Is it so you're going to it's like there's a long journey for the bull to get to the altar to be slaughtered. And if you go, pussy, pussy, footy, 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 it doesn't matter. You can waste an inordinate lot of time, and then it'll turn around at the last moment, just like Kingsnorth did. He smelt in the Extinctionati exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, yes,
And he
but
turns and runs. But it's better if
you
he
can
runs
still.
early, right? It's better if he runs early than you invest a lot of time into something where then you just don't get to the goal.
I'm still wondering whether you can bring this out into the light without. Well, you've got to be confronting. It's going to end up being confronting one way or the other. But rather
You've
than
got to
bringing
get
it
down
out,
to the elephant in the room. At some stage, you've got to get down to brass tacks. So it
yeah,
doesn't matter
yeah.
how much preliminary sweet talking you do. It's like if the maiden isn't up for it, she's not up for it.
No,
It
but
doesn't matter
what
how much whining and dining you do. She'll take all the whining and dining, but she does not intend to submit.
no, but I think there's a difference between attacking someone because they won't acknowledge or can't see the elephant in the room, or taking another point, taking a more positive take on it. It's not the right word. Of instead of attacking them because they won't recognise this or can't see it, is suggest that there is an elephant in the room, and would they like to sort of explore with me and see if they can spot the thing. In other words, lead them to it. Don't lead them to it. Don't sort of drive them to it, or don't drive them, or don't lead them to it by attacking where they're already at, because it shuts down it kind of shuts down the procedure once people feel good. I guess what I'm trying to say is you know try and do it without having a full frontal attack on the sacred the shibboleths that they've got already. It's not an easy thing here, and I mean, just personally, when I think back, if I'd just been left alone, not bothered to read books or look at things, or just had a more ordinary life, and lived with my concerns about there's something not right. I think I'm missing something here. I know I'm missing something big, but I don't know what it is. I don't think I could have arrived at a sort of a grasp of the spiritual point without somebody to give me a fucking clue. And I wonder whether people like Kingsnorth need a little. I know you said that he's pretty well with it, but he needs to be suggested to him that what he's looking for is going to lie outside of what his mind's generating, and this philosophy that he's got, because what he's doing is going down this path of being a philosopher, and the path of philosophers always leads you to turn aside from the spiritual point at the last minute and go off at a strange angle. It never takes the final step over the threshold. Um, so I'm suggesting that you've got to. It might be better to be suggesting this to people because they obviously haven't got it, and yet it's not a piece of knowledge. It's not as if you're giving them really a piece of information. You're actually just, I guess, stopping their alien cortex from it and saying, hey, instead of trying to think your way out of it, try not thinking your way out of it. Just stopping that process.
This is not persuasion, right? This is not like, say, the communists, all these tankies and stuff like that. They try and recruit by persuasion and argument, and that's pharisaical. We're not Pharisees, right? We're shamans, and people can only actually be helped when they know that they're sick. So these people are the worst kind of sickness because they know they're sick, but they refuse to admit it. So there's only one thing where people have to reach rock bottom to actually start on this path, to actually get anywhere. You have to reach rock bottom. While you still have hope and you still have the means to carry on this tap dance and have your strength, nobody's going to convince you of anything. I mean, have you ever convinced anybody of anything? It's incredibly difficult, and the only way you can do it is if they get to the point where they think, okay, I can do this harmlessly. But if they get a smell that's saying that this is going to cure me of my insanity, you're not going to get there. So you can't get there softly and by persuasion. You just have to give people an astounding shock, and then from that shock, there might it might invoke a change. But these people are essentially like alcoholics, and a lot of the philosopher types are kind of intellectual alcoholics. They get a very small dopamine hit when they get a clever idea, and they get lots of like Steven Pinker. He just about purrs when if you see somebody praising his book or something like that, because they get a little micro dopamine hit from being clever. And so they're alcoholics, right? And so, like an alcoholic at the bar, or you can't persuade them to stop drinking. You're just never gonna fucking do it. But you can do something. You can smack him in the face. Say like, you're drunk. Bam! It's like, what me? I never get drunk. Well, then why did I fucking hit you in the face?
I suppose that's the thing that
they got to have a car crash. And it's like, yeah, you can give somebody a fucking car crash.
Yeah, I guess that the tragedy is that the most alien thing to us is a momentary stopping of the alien cortex.
Yeah, and I mean, the elites know this. The elites use the shock doctrine on a large scale. So when you see a spectacular like 9/11, what's happened recently is it's got it written all over it. But yeah, a lot of people think, oh, well, they'll never use nuclear weapons. Of course they'll use nuclear weapons. Go and have a look at Iraq. It was shock and awe. They used shock and awe. It's like they've done it on everybody else around the block. So it's like, now it's your turn. Now the soldiers come home. They're going to do it on us. Right? They've perfected it. Or go and have a look at the guys in Iraq. They're not unnew. They're not somebody else. They're not the other. The guys in Iraq are us from the future. Right? We are going to get the treat. Do you honestly think guys like Blair and Bush and Cheney and Condoleezza Rice and Colin Powell and Wolfowitz and Billy Crystal and all, do you honestly think those guys are going to treat their own people better than the Iraqis? Of course not. When it comes down to the wire, we are the fucking Iraqi civilians. So they're going to use shock and awe on us, right? You better get your shock up front, right? So if you shocked into being a ghost, right, then you're a real warrior. Then you can take battle, right? In all training, in all militaries, they have a process. Basic training is kind of training that you would get in an ashram for a spiritual realm. Is they break you down psychologically and then build you up as a unit. That's standard all over the world, back to the ancient Sumerians. And so, the only way you can actually survive, part of that training is to give you exposure to battle. So, for example, they find excuses to put you in a dugout in a trench, with a target behind your head, and then people shoot at you, because they want to give you training for what it's going to be like with a battle. They do it with horses, like military horses. They fire rifles in the air, next to their head until they don't bolt. They habituate you to the shock, and that's the only way that you can actually win this big shock that's going to come. When they use the shock doctrine on us, the only defense you have against it is habituation to shock. Now, nobody is habituated to shock. They're all fucking sheep. They barely need to let off a firecracker and everybody's running for a fucking jab. So it's like, this is going to be ugly. Right? We're in a lifeboat with 8 billion people. They need to whittle down to 500 million. This is going to be brutal. I don't sidle up to a Christian and say, I'm going to stick with you. You'll get me through this. It's like, they're the first to go. See, here's the thing. When the guys in Auschwitz, I once read this, that when the guys in Auschwitz, when they arrived in Auschwitz, I always tried to think myself into these situations, try and get on both sides. What was it like to be a guard in Auschwitz? And I never let that problem go until I absolutely understood and identified them. And then how is it like to be an inmate in one of those things, and read about it until I never let it go. I've done this all my life. Never let it go till I absolutely feel like I understand perfectly what it was to be one of those guys. And so in the course of that, I read that when the guys came to Auschwitz, this is their experience. The big, cattle car rolls up. They open the doors. They get everybody they try and make them into soldiers. Why? Because they're SS, right? They're soldiers. And so they use what they learned in basic training from them, and they try and get civilians to line up like soldiers. Now they're going to do triage. There's a guy on a table. He's a doctor. And they bring all the guys one by one, come to the table. And the guy says, he looks them up and down, checks their teeth, does a basic examination. And he says, left or right? Now, if you go to the left, there's a mean-looking couple. And he's got a fat stick. And there are lots of miserable-looking fucks standing in the ranks that go there. That's the left side. On the right side is this little door, which is kind of like a little passage, right? And it's all got flowers on it. And it's got the Star of David. I think they even had lovely music coming out of it, if I'm not over-embellishing it. Guess where everybody wanted to go? Everybody that went up to the table, do you think they wanted to go to the right or the left? You know where the left led, right? You know where the left led. All the derelicts went straight to the gas chambers through that door that they all wanted to go to, with painted with flowers, and that on the side of that was the death chambers. No one wanted to go into the ranks where obviously they were building labor parties, but that was the route to survival of the death camps, the route to the end of the death camps, the route to the thinking that gave the death camps was to the right, the hard path. So Christians, so tell me, what do you think Kingsnorth wants? He wants a palliative. He wants to go into the little door with the flowers on and keep his halo. And that's why he goes for Bulgarian Orthodox Church. Why? Because it's all flowery and nice and gilt, and it's got all the bells and smells and all the trappings of, salvation. It's a peaceful, nice death. Don't do it. But anyway, you have to shock people. It's basically like being a. So just one more example. This is well known in things like, if you've been a diver, you'll know this. You'll know about nitrogen narcosis. Talk to somebody who's been in nitrogen narcosis. So I spoke to some guy who very, very nearly died, and from nitrogen narcosis. And the reason was he got to like 100 feet or something, and he carried on down. He just carried on swimming down and down and down. And he said afterwards, "Why did you carry on swimming down?" And he said, "I thought that there were dolphins." He said he literally saw dolphins, and they were beckoning him down. He said they were like angels. He said it was the most beautiful experience he's ever had. But swimming down basically makes your nitrogen narcosis worse. And so the only reason why he's alive, he said, "Well, what stopped you? Why didn't you just carry on down? And you'd be dead now." And he said, "Just something snapped. There was a tiny little voice in my head that said, this is wrong. There's something wrong." And he said that saved me. I suddenly just something like snapped. And he suddenly realized nitrogen narcosis. And that saved his life. But it's the same with, with all these outs. You need that that little reminder that there's something wrong. And you have it. Go into a church. You go into a fucking church and tell me you can't tell us something wrong. There's a fucking dead guy up on the fucking wall in the front of the church. This is not right, people. This is evil. If you went to the church for the very first time, like a Viking or something, went into a church for the very first time in their adulthood, they were appalled. St. Paul. Because it's fucking horrible. I mean, you all the lights and the beautiful colors and all this ritualizing, and there's a fucking piece of meat up on a stick in the front of it. You know this is evil. You know it. But because you introduced it here, it's like, it's terrible.
I go to a bit because my mother used to drag me to church every Sunday. Yeah, that's one of my most vivid memories, was just the perplexity at this rotten symbolism, this suffering hanging up all over the fucking place. I found, it's really distressing. I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned once before in some context, I can't remember, about being sort of post-traumatic stressed, and what you were saying a minute ago about how the military breaks you down, then builds you back into this unit, or how the cult will break down your ego and this kind of thing. But what I just wanted to ask you a question about that. What happens to the psychological damage there? Is that why you made that comment about having some?
There's none.
Why did you make a point about having PTSD, for instance, or was it in a different context?
The PTSD comes because it's unresolved, right? I mean, I got PTSD from from all the experiences I had, but I didn't know at the time. I thought I was beyond all of it. It took me a long time. It basically took me 7 years in London to really see it from a perspective, and then realize that I had PTSD, and everybody in South Africa had it. Everybody living in South Africa right now has PTSD. They just don't
Yeah,
know
but
it.
I'm looking at it. I wanted to just take it a little step further. That, for instance, in the ashram situation, where I suppose ideally at the end of the process, a person loses their egoic identity. But is there a kind of a psychological residue still there in terms of the trauma of that killing? Is that
No,
still linger there?
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so this is a very good point, because you see, what people don't account for is the pre-traumatic stress disorder. See, everybody in the Western world has pre-traumatic stress disorder. You don't get out of the stress. So after enlightenment, there's a common misunderstanding and perpetuated by a lot of these fake gurus and Paul Kingsnorth types, that they exude all the sattva and all the spirituality and stuff like that. And then everybody thinks, oh, if you become like the Buddha, or you become like Muhammad, or Christ, then everything goes smoothly. You just wander around with a pink cloud, and rose petals are scattered at your feet, and the taxman never comes after you, and policemen say, fall down at their feet and worship you and stuff like that. And it's like, it's a lie. There's so many people selling that lie. I'll tell you what happens after enlightenment. It's eupsychosis. So basically, it's traumatic. It's a death experience. You are like somebody who's come out of the other side. You have PTSD for the rest of your life, but it's better than pre-stress disorder. And the reason is because you're remote from it, right? So in other words, it'll catch you. You see, the thing is that I, although I had PTSD, I didn't recognize it, because I couldn't. It took me a long time to see that some of the behaviors that I was doing were not quite right, right? I don't want to go into details and stuff, but I could gradually see from a kind of objective third person point of view that, like, that's not quite quite right. But you see, then I could see it and deal with it. Just seeing it was enough to deal with it. The thing is, there was no emotional content in it. You see, so it's kind of like you look at your body and your behavior and stuff from an objective third person point of view.
Yeah.
Before enlightenment, you're completely vested in your thing. You're a scared rabbit in that
you're
rabbit's
identifying
thing.
with it.
Yeah, you identify with it, and
Mm.
you're completely running around, seeking, and there's this restlessness. So you're in a point of peace that other people wouldn't recognize. A lot of people. Yeah, it's very challenging, especially for people on a spiritual path. And I can give lots of examples of this, but I think I've given a few, especially with this one guy I went to India with on this pilgrimage, and he was very into Buddhism, talking shaved head and ochre robes and the full tilt, And he was very proud of the fact that he had spiritually advanced and stuff. You get a lot of this stuff, especially in Buddhism. I don't know why, but anyway, they have a few cities, and they think they're the top of the world and stuff. And so if you come to them and say, like, they think they're going to reach enlightenment maybe in 5 lifetimes. And you say, like, dude, enlightenment's not a big deal. Like, say, like, you should do it in at least 2 years. And they're like, and then I get into this kind of debate and stuff like that, because they want to believe that it's some kind of perfection and stuff, and it's not. It's almost the opposite in a way. It turns you into a genuine human being. And so, guys, we're chimps, man. We're primates. So everybody enlightenment just means you get that you're a chimp. Yeah. All this other stuff is denial, substitution, deflection, diversion. It's all this big game to pretend we're just a fucking mortal chimp. So you only become normal after this. So chimps have PTSD. Yeah, you look at a baboon or a chimp in the wild and tell me they haven't got PTSD. That's the price of life. Yeah, but there is a point you can get to where you can stand aloof from it. And more than that, it's a sense of serene beauty, but you don't want to say that because immediately then everybody goes, "Oh, pink cloud!" No, not pink cloud. Fuck pink cloud. Fuck the sattva. So it's very difficult because you're trying to communicate to people in pre-enlightenment speech about a world that they don't know.
That's what I was saying, that using words like serene, beauty, peace,
love. Don't want to use love. That's a horrid one.
Yeah, they're very.
They've never experienced love, so you know it's not in their vocabulary. But then these guys are that's all the words they use. You know, it's better they shut up.
Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. I was interested in just exploring it a little bit. Just personally, I've noticed that where, you know, what you were saying about noticing this externally rather than, you know, I mean, I've read about PTSD and some other things that people tend to have if they've been through a nasty time. And I thought to myself, no, don't think that fits me, you know. But then if I then look at myself from the outside and say, hang on, what do you look like looking at this from outside of yourself? And thinking, yeah, well, that's what my diagnosis would be, PTSD. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's as though, more or less what you've just said, that you found it from the outside of yourself rather than the inside of yourself. And I'm not explaining that very well, but you didn't.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have an identification with it in there already. You know, you just came across it later and thought, oh, hang on, yeah. You know, if anybody else saw a person who was feeling like that and behaving like that and who had experiences like that, say, oh, yeah, I'd diagnose you like that. And think, oh, that's surprising because I would never have felt that for myself, you know.
Yeah, well, what caught me is that I was very good under stressful situations. So I've been through so much stress in my life that I never saw the PTSD because I was even now in stressful situations. People remark like you know, boat last year got into a big storm and it was a collision, and everybody remarked about how calm I was. But I'm very, very good in those stressful situations. What got me was the absolutely peaceful one. So when there were no demands on me and stuff, then I noticed it. So I only noticed it going to Britain because it was, you know, such a safe, closeted, peaceful place. And then I noticed I couldn't bear it. I needed the drama. Yeah. But
can I say something quite personal there? I usually don't, but I just, when you've been talking there, there's a flow of experiences came back to me, and I just wanted to talk about it because, I mean, why not? It's bursting out.
Yeah, go ahead.
But,
Go ahead.
you know, when I was just going to reach 15, I died. Well, I died. My sister was killed in front of me by a car, and all the family, and I was there on the scene, covered with blood. And I mean, now that you're talking about an initiation and the shock and everything, I remember this for my life, of course, because it's a and I was immediately faced with the reaction of the church first, who tried to come to us, and I actually remember kicking them out of my house. I don't know how I did that at not even 15. I remember fighting against it when I went to church and everything afterwards. I remember very well the refusal to comply and the change that operated in me. Like you talk about a teenage initiation, a kind of a death. I was a person before the event and after, that a completely different person. It put me on a path, of course, of enormous PTSD, because I started to everything was, and I was constantly like that. But it was a me before and after. I can't explain exactly in words, because I stepped into life another person, and it stayed with me. And like you, I didn't recognize PTSD, and I probably didn't follow this, what you went through with enlightenment and things like that. But I I thread a path of very isolated, nearly adult, already in the middle of teenagers. And it stayed with me. And I realized what you said about being good under stress. I stepped into a profession where I was in constant, delivering and operating blood and being in emergencies and stuff like that, with a perfect kind of level thing. And the same thing as you, when I was in a peaceful and kind of serene atmosphere, that's when I detected. But I did the same thing as you. I didn't identify with the PTSD. I was not the PTSD. It was not me. It was there. I was observing it all through my life, until I came to a point where, I had to live with it. And actually, it's part of me, and I'm not trying to treat it. It's not. I'm not taking that attitude. But I wanted to share this kind of bathing in blood thing that happened, that suddenly brought me from one side, a girl I knew, me, compliant, good daughter, a good student, good everything. And suddenly the other person that came out with thoughts of anarchy, rejection of my family, of my society, of everything around me, a total rebel, expelled, went through all sorts of things. And there was a turning point, where the shock of the event kind of just propelled me into where I am now. And I can really understand the initiation of young people and what they miss by not. I'm not wishing on anybody what I went through, but what I mean is that in the society we live in, unfortunately, things like that can be presented. And and also I remember how the Crows, the church people, tried to present you with this denial of death, and come with us, we're going to comfort you, you're going to be with us, it's going to be okay. And how I had this thing that suddenly said, no, don't go there, just reject them, fuck off, get off my back, get off my family. And it was, I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, you see, what they're trying to do is they're trying to patch things up and say, like, it's like the T-Rex. You're confronted with death, and the T-Rex has come into the flock and taken one of the flock out, and you've seen it. And they all say, no, the T-Rex doesn't exist. Don't, blink at your eyes and say la 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 la, and say all the spells against the T-Rex. So like, no, the T-Rex exists. Like, grow up. And so when you're confronted with death, it's kind of done with. Your death anxiety is done with, and so it puts you in a completely different realm. But it's like Dostoevsky. I don't know why I struggle to say his name. Dostoevsky, and he had a mock death. You need to go through something like that. It gave him epilepsy, right? So, but it kind of all the shit. There's no shit left in you after that. So everybody's full of shit. Why? Because they haven't had a near-death experience. So, I mean, you now, like Anita Mojani or whatever writes these books like Near-Death Experience and Dying to Be Me. It's like, guys, Everybody used to do this. If you're a hunter-gatherer, by the time you were an adult, you'd been through a near-death experience, right? The fact, part of our problem is that we're not going through near-death experiences. Right? We need to be traumatized. There's not enough trauma. Now, the psych professional will tell you the exact opposite. But I'm telling you, if the first near-death experience happens to you in adulthood or like in your 30s, you're fucked. A 30-year-old does not have the plasticity to incorporate a near-death experience so late in life. So I pity you what's coming if you're one of these infantilized 40-year-olds like most people are in a country like Britain and America. You're in for deep shit.
Well, as a mother, I saw that happening with our society and the way we bring up young men and women, but mostly men, where they are protected and you know, like the psychologists, do not traumatize, do not expose your kids to risk, pad all their toys, put them in playgrounds where they can't hurt themselves. And I remember having my son is now 30, but when he was young, I was not padding him too much. He had kind of, you know, an outdoor life, and because I luckily live close to nature, but I could see him going down that path. And I encouraged him to not go to college and to go and take a job on a boat and just go and face the weather, getting up at 4 o'clock to do cargo and ferries and fishing. And he had the most amazing, well, maybe not easy years, and foundation years for his personality. I'm not saying he's perfect now, but at least I wanted him to face hardship, risk, danger, cold, pain. And I think he graduated from that. I think it was worth 10 years of college. The result is that, you know, he doesn't spend time on video games. He doesn't look at his phone. I can never reach him on the phone. You know, he just doesn't look at, he's not a visual addict of the internet. He's just, I don't know whatever I gave or I encouraged him, but I think if we can get that across to people who have got young men or young teenagers, is that just don't pad them, don't protect them, don't, you know, give them hard experiences, get them in the cold water, get them to have scratches, get them in the mud at an early age, get them to, and girls too. It's not, but it's just that
Yeah,
men, I felt, need it so much in those
we evolved for it.
years. It's just,
We evolved for it. You see, part of the thing, you know, we have these deficits that are being filled up by things like tech and the metaverse and that. So, I saw these kind of anarchist types, or these. I think somebody posted something with this group that was, kind of, they're followers of Uncle Ted, but they were talking about their struggle to like do without cell phones and stuff, and it's like you can't, you need to go through some trauma and stuff. It's a trauma substitute for you, so it's much deeper than just giving up a cell phone or something like that. So yeah, I posted that video on the ship, right? So I thought that was really nice because it was a great thing, the sailing ship. And also a little bit Joshua Slocum. I posted another one, but that thing, that documentary about rounding Cape Horn on a sailing ship, I thought really, it was kind of magic because it just captured on film. By the time film was a thing, that life was over, but it was just on the borderline. So the guy giving a commentary, it came across, that. And what I mean comes across as this feeling of power that you get out of being in, feeling cold and pain and having risk and stuff. Is I think somebody posted something, say they would last 10 minutes and that kind of environment. The thing is, you're going to get back to that, right? You're going back to that, and the thing, it's very scary for all these, house rats and, house slaves and stuff like that. All these closeted, coddled people. That kind of thing is, scary as fuck. Just looking at that, the life of those things. But a couple of things I'd say about it, and that is you'd snap into it in a heartbeat. You're a hell of a lot stronger than you think, and it's a lot to do with the culture around you. If everybody else is getting on like a house on fire and enjoying it, you will too. You'll surprise yourself. And the other thing is that what I thought came across in that guy's commentary was the feeling of how awesome it was. So he's continually saying, like shit that, I think most people think that's awful. He's saying like, yeah, and then, but it's just how it was. It was, and you can see that he kind of loved it underneath, right? So he's telling you all how bad it is, but you can tell in his voice that he kind of loved it. And
yeah, the vibe was really infectious. I didn't watch
yeah,
all of it, but I mean, you could after a couple of minutes, you were really digging it. Going, wow,
yeah,
he was
exactly.
really getting that across really well.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to try and get across, is that everybody's really scared of this, but it's empowering. Right? So everybody has been in the military and stuff. Now, like they you get a feeling of power because they take you beyond your limits. It's especially with officer training. One of the things is to take you beyond your limits, and there's a simple reason for it. Is they want to, everybody has an idea of their boundaries, but if they take you beyond your boundaries and you're still doing fine, you get to a point where you think, well, I don't know what my limit is. It might be unlimited forever, because if you go past what you think is your limit and you're doing fine, you think, well, you don't know where the next limit is. You never, and that's really empowering. That's why those guys have such stiff backs. So it makes you feel good. And but you see, this is what we were evolved for, right? This is normal behavior. We're in a very abnormal period that's about to end. And so it's not something to think, oh my God, I can't cope with this. it's a challenge. But, we evolved for this challenge. So it's like, getting a caged chimp and putting him back in the wild. It's like scary, but relax. You evolve for this challenge.
I was thinking of an analogy, which is I've often thought about, about a tree weathering a storm, and it can go. It can. You could state it two different ways. One is that the storm keeps damaging the tree and breaking the branches off it, and eventually wears the thing down and dies. Or alternative path is that the tree is challenged by this and grows stronger and more resistant, more able to weather this storm. And I've often wondered about the validity of both of those. But I guess what you're saying is that the tree gets stronger in the storm. It doesn't get blown over and destroyed.
Well, having observed trees where I live, which is constantly a windy place with really, storms very often and everything, you look, all the trees, I'll send you some pictures if you like, but all the trees around here are growing in the direction of the wind. They've got this kind of shape that is completely, and there's very seldom trees that fall here or branches that fall because they've all adapted to the wind.
Although I suppose really it's still a little bit unnatural because once they would have been part of a forest and they wouldn't have needed to hold up
Precisely.
themselves.
The forest,
Yeah.
was destroyed by the British for building their
Yeah.
fleet and for getting rebels out of the forest and killing the wolves. So
I read about that. Something you posted about. It might have been that tree you've got. Is it an oak tree or some kind of tree you've got growing a seed from some famous tree?
Yeah, it's a sapling from an oak that's 1,000-year-old.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And they managed
you mentioned.
Hmm?
Yeah, when you mentioned it, I ended up reading, and it was describing what happened to all the trees in Ireland, and how it was just gradually deforested.
Yeah.
So Sophie gave that tree a name. Do you want to share what the name is?
Which, or the one that I, because it comes from
Your
Brian.
one.
Sorry?
Your one, Yggdrasil.
Oh, yes. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It only sheds acorns every 10 years, and some enthusiasts took some, and they got little trees out of them in the last few years. So some people decided to plant them, and I was one of them. So I've got this tree that comes from a 1,000-year-old oak I'm planting here, and hoping that, it grows and it's in a sheltered spot and it's got friends around. And I hope that other people are doing this, because Ireland has got no forest left. Well, apart from a few places in the north, it's gone. It's very sad. But that story is brilliant on the big Yggdrasil. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
but anyway, it's a very good observation about the lone tree struggling, and without the forest. And this is what the Extinctionati is all about. I think is like building up the forests from saplings. But the thing is, it's not all harsh weather and weathering the storm and stuff like that. There's a huge storm coming, but most sailing is plain sailing. You remember all the freakish storms and dramatic times and close shaves, but they're the exception. The vast majority is beautiful. I don't think that came across in the video about the ship. Is those guys had many times when they were up aloft, and they described sailing ships like a cloud. It was just magic being up there. It's on top of the worlds. Just incredible feeling. And that was the norm. So a lot of the stuff gets reported as dramatic, but anyway, all of this stuff. So yeah. Okay, so I wanted to get through. So is everybody okay with the manifesto as it is? And can we just have a little vote, show of hands or something, that is everybody okay if it goes out like that?
I haven't finished reading it because it's so long, and I'm looking at all the links that you've put at the same time. So I've still got some pages to read. It's just, I mean, for us who are trying to be at the meetings on a regular basis and follow up, it's just a lot of stuff is known, and you've very cleverly put it together. I'm just in admiration of the work and the time it must have taken you to do all this. So I'm only half through it, and I really like it.
So should we? So I'm itching to move on. I want to say goodbye to Extinction Rebellion and move to and start doing AMAs and stuff like that. And
I've read all of the manifesto, and it was great from my point of view. I read through it, and nothing stuck out as wrong or an error. I didn't check any of the links though. I just read the whole thing yesterday, so I think it's good. I think it sums up everything. My feelings on it were very positive, and of course, the sense of humor. It's just great from my point of view. Yeah.
So it is. Does anybody? So do you want to raise lower hands there, or is there's something to take a vote on this? I'm sure there is. More actions. I don't know. Do you want to take a formal vote and just should we adopt this as our manifesto?
No, I don't think.
In the evening.
I think it's probably doubtful anyone's got an objection to it.
All right. So, all right, then let's say motion is adopted. We'll do it, and then we'll see in the Western meeting tonight if everybody's okay. But then I think we should. Is everybody ready to abandon XR Med and Extinction Rebellion?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah, it's time to make the lifeboat and leave. XR, make the
Okay,
extinction audio.
I'm so looking forward to doing goodbye and thanks for all the fish post. And
Yes.
I'll point to the manifesto just to explain what we're doing. But I I'll put it on XR Med, and then hopefully somebody can like post it on our Extinction Rebellion. I think I'll ask Veneratio 5 to just say, here, this is, we're moving out. We're decamping, so this is what we're all about, and point him to the manifesto and ask him to say, do you mind just posting so everybody else can see what we're about? And maybe he will.
And then we might get loads of subscribers on this ExarMed sub because you say that, and then we migrate with 1,000 members.
Yeah, in the rear guard. As we step off the ship, all the rats basically climb on. No, the numbers are going down if you put the stuff we're posting. But yeah, I'm ready to go to the Extinctionati thread. So I'll tell everybody on the thing that we're moving, and I'll put a post to Kings North on the on ExxonMed, and then let's start afresh on the thing. So I'm thinking in terms of on the Extinctionati threads. I'm kind of bored with all the news and all this stuff. So if I kind of feel we just I would like to do more writing and stuff and not posting, all the disaster porn and stuff from the news. If everybody is okay with that and won't go cold turkey on the disaster porn. But I think we all know what's kind of going on, and we need to give it some attention to navigate it. But I think the next big thing is a financial crisis, and I've said what everybody should do, according to my opinion. So yeah, if you have news and stuff, then post it on the Extinctionati. But I'm thinking, we recruit in other ways. I also want to do a video on just explaining the flippening, just kind of like that Veritasim one, refer to that Veritasim one and explain the flippening so people can understand it. But I would like to go and find people who would try and challenge us and challenge challenge the thinking, and get more of a debate around it. I think it would do people a lot of good psychologically to get out of stirring the doomer turd. Maybe it would be good to talk to that Elliot person, but I think I might refer people to it in the doomosphere and further, and maybe try find, be provocative and try and find other subs that conspiracy sub, there's a conspiracy sub and the anti-conspiracy sub, and basically try and troll those a bit. But what it means is that a lot of shitheads are going to descend on us, and I loathe all of that. So, if people will try and support me in answering people, but this is very, very tedious time, is when basically you've got to do psychotherapy for idiots. And I hate it, but that's what we're in for. It's the price of actually growing. So if everybody's ready for that, then are we up for it? Should we launch? Okay.
Yep, let's go.
Yeah, take that as a. Yeah. Okay. So then, yeah, it's basically have fun trolling people and being provocative and just make them think a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Well then,
aren't we back again though, where we were talking earlier about challenging people, which you did write in the manifesto, as not being the way to go. That like you're not really going to change them by doing that.
No, you can't. Yeah, no,
You know,
you're not really
I
going to
got to
change
admit,
anybody. So, but it's worthwhile warning people. The
yeah, but I can't see you're going to put an enormous amount of energy into just having these fruitless debates and counterpoints and things with these people who are going to object to it. I don't know. Just personally, I'm not into that.
well, yeah, but
It just
what
kind of,
else? What else to do? So that
well, I don't
so
know.
that
It's a little bit like I was saying earlier, where you put it there, and if they resonate with it, then they're the people it's going to mean something to them. But I think for the people who don't resonate with them, you're not going to turn them around.
maybe yeah. I didn't make this point on that topic. So there are 2 points to. So I never tangle with anybody with the expectation of changing them. I always do it just for the audience. So it's better. I always have in mind who's reading the thing. I'm just using people as a useful idiot to surface, the zeitgeist and how people think. But yeah, I'm not on a mission to change anybody's mind. But you have to have well, I think you have to have a debate in the public forum, to get to get people to ferret people out. You can't just sit on a shelf doing a Darren and polishing the manifesto until it bowls everybody over. Yeah, I think the way to move forward is you have to take heads. If people can see you taking heads, so it's well worthwhile talking to a talking head, because if you can take their scalp, you get the audience. See, that's why people won't engage. At least some people is they're scared you're going to take their scalp, and so Guy McPherson is terribly jealous of his audience and stuff, and so Sam Mitchell and stuff too, and so they don't want you to ridicule them or humiliate them in front of their audience. But I mean, I think that should be our aim. I mean, and this is why it's a good defense. The reason why they won't tackle us is we got nothing to lose, right? So because we outright cranks, right? We have no audience, and so then they can see we got nothing to lose, and so it's not worth them losing their followers. And so, but for us, we can take on all comers because we're kind of Andy Kaufman. We don't care if somebody punch out. Nobody gets any credit for punching out Andy Kaufman. In fact, you get a few negative points. So in our situation, you're kind of in a win-win. It's like if you take a scalp, you get more kudos, and if somebody punches you out, like who gets any brownie points for punching out Extinctionati? It's like a joke organization. So
I'm wondering whether an idea might be, instead of replying individually to people who post their objections on the sub, where you could potentially put a lot of work into replying to one person and it's just lost. Is to just don't reply. Is just collect together the week's objections and address them at a meeting in one of these videos. Just go through and say, last week we had this were the main things that people were saying back at us, and let's go into that. And that way it gets out, the effort that you're putting into it gets out to more people rather than just sort of being
yes,
replied to one, because you can see it where at other times on XR Med, maybe in the early days, not so much now because they're mostly gone away. But you had some people there who were objecting to what you were saying, and you wrote extensively, but it just all went down the drain hole of that one person. And very few other people would have bothered reading it, or it didn't really escape.
Yeah.
You know,
That is
and the other thing
that is
is
nice.
too, you know, as I said, just from my point of view, replying to people like that, it's just soul destroying. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh fuck!
they're
It
just
eats your
sucking
soul.
out your energy.
Yeah. They're fucking Death Eaters. Yeah, but
Yeah.
this is the thing, though. A couple of things. One, so somebody just recently accused me of not engaging because strategic non-engagement. But what I found was a lot of people just do a diss. They're just trying to do a casual diss to just shit on you, and then move on. So you won't really hear any in depth about what they really think until you engage with them. So you got to kind of like exchange the diss, draw them out a bit, and then you can find out where they're coming from. And you need to do that because nobody has any original thought on social media, as far as I can tell. They just regurgitate some shit they heard. So they just basically assembling crap off the internet and into some kind of hodgepodge of a denial of death, and then they just it doesn't fit with my little montage, and then they give you a diss. But you got to find out where they got all this shit from, and find out where all these talking points come. And you can always find there's some shithead like Jordan Peterson or like Abigail Thorne or something, and they spouted this, or a lot of it comes from college or some shit. But you can always find you can usually find where the zeitgeist, where these memes and shit come from, and then you can answer those. But you have to do a lot of spade work to get to that point, right? Until you can start to hear where these guys' minds are at, and then once you understand that the lay of the land, then you can start pecking away at their philosophy. But I just found you just need a lot of work, a lot of soul destroying work to just find out what the zeitgeist is and where they're coming from. And without that, you can't just try to blaze ahead and assume everybody's going to fall in line behind you and you'll have a big following and you'll forge ahead and survive the flipping. It doesn't work that way. It's kind of, you've got to enter the marketplace of ideas and start battling. And then you start to realize what the tactics are and what the players are, and you just got to get in the melee and start on them all. I think it's the only way, and it basically, I think, just think of it as our service to humanity. You see what you see. Oh, one of the things that I don't think is apparent is if people see me like basically doing a lot of swashbuckling and cut and thrust in something like XR Med, which is it's so I loathe every minute of it. But what you don't see is the number of people that came back afterwards and said what a big change I made personally to them. So a lot of makes me a little choked up a bit. But a number of people said that I saved their lives.
Oh, look.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
big.
I mean, I think everyone would probably say the same thing, that having encountered you is a major life event.
Yeah,
You know,
But here's the thing. I started off argumentative and combative and had real duels with people, and then it forced them, just because they were trying to get back at me, it forced them to go and have a look at all of the stuff. And a number of people came back and said, I'm talking like 10, came back and said, they absolutely hated me. And then they said thanks because it helped them out a lot.
yeah,
That's
that's
like
amazing.
that's like the master hitting his student with a stick and the student asking him why, and you'll find out. It's a bit like the old teachers, in Zen Buddhism, who used to do that for no reason.
Yeah, Rinzai.
But I
Rinzai
remember
school,
I remember
whack you hard,
teaching,
man.
I remember something that you wrote at the beginning on the Sirius Institute when I first encountered you, and there was this phrase that you were saying at the beginning of your expose that was, well, you know, this is going to be a big filter because this is going to be pages and pages and pages of things, and not many people are going to be able to read all that. So it's just going to be a big filter. And I felt that a bit about the manifesto, and we might discuss that in the Western meeting this afternoon, because I think a lot of people cannot read more than 2 or 3 pages. It's just I feel that there's going to be this barrier in the world where we live today. Now, not our group, we got kind of used to this, and we like it, and I mean, I personally love reading, but I think that that's still the big filter, and it's a good one. It's a good one. It's filters
Yeah.
attention.
Okay. Well, this is a big subject, but the whole thing is a big filter. It is the great filter. The flippening is the great filter. So this is the separation of the sheep and the goats, as it says in the book of Revelation. This is it. It's like very few people get through this. This is the eye of an eagle. And so you can't but come through this transform. But this is how evolution works. And it's back to the Darwin videos. So I said to you, the process of evolution is focal points of attraction and repulsion, right? Filter, feedback, and filtration. So it's the 3 Fs, and that's how you evolve. So the focal point of attraction is, the people read the manifesto, hear about the Extinctionati, and it's like batshit crazy shit, cranky, weird shit, but there's something attractive. So that's a first separator, is it repels some people and attracts others. So that's the first alchemy of evolution that's going on in nature all the time. Then it's feedback. A lot of the repetition feedback, that's part of the thing that basically the mall inside social media is getting feedback and amplification. And then, if you just have amplification, you just wind up where Extinction Rebellion is. You just have a big tent that's going nowhere because it's all at odds with itself. And the cure for that is filtration. So they never did filtration in XR, and that's why they got nowhere, because they can easily be controlled, and you have to have some kind of discrimination, and the discrimination is simple. It's like, does it contribute to the Kantian whole or detract from it? So cancer is a great amplification, but it's not. It's your cells. They're just multiplying too fast, and they're not contributing to the Kantian whole. So the cancer doesn't contribute to the health of the body, whereas a healthy organ like your heart or lungs or thing, the word organized comes from the human body organs, and so it means that if you have organization, it means that you have various parts that are complementary and contribute to the whole, and the whole in turn feeds the parts, and that's what living organisms are. And so it's all the way down to the micro machines inside your body, all the nano machines. I mean, not artificial nano ones. I mean, biological ones. And all the way up in the cell looks like a city like New York, and each one of the parts, the mitochondria, all the messenger RNA, they're all the traffic of maintaining a cell. Already by the time you see a cell, you're seeing the whole world. And then those cells, gang up together and make organs, and then those organs contribute to the person, and then the person contributes to the society, and society then should integrate somewhere in the ecology and the habitats, and so that and the ultimate whole that we're talking about is the whole Earth. And so what part of the thing is industrial society, and our alien cortex is a kind of a cancer which is serving itself at the expense of the whole. So it's literally cancer. And so, yeah, it's anyway, that's the process of evolution. So it's evolution of the extinctionati and the evolution of everybody inside it and the evolution of society. So we obviously, in case you didn't get this, we're against the cancer. And the cancer is primarily the alien cortex. Right? It's in people's heads. They're all responding. You know, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with humans. They're all just responding to the shit that's going on in their heads. And now, you know, we've been through where that shit comes from. It's particularly, it's in our alien cortex. Everybody's got an alien cortex, but it's that darn Neanderthal Cro-Magnon crossbreed that is kind of, you know, the hope of the Ubermensch, but it's also fatal. If we don't move out of the transition points of this ill-fitting hybrid of Cro-Magnon Neanderthal, but if we can't resolve this issue in our heads, we're done for. But we're probably done for anyway. There's probably the ecological damage and deep into overshoot. So if anybody makes it through this, it's going to be a fucking miracle. But I don't think you can just say, oh, well, some guys in Africa will survive. I don't think we're there, man. I used to think that. I mean, coming from Africa, I used to think Africa was absolutely bulletproof because there's so many bullets there, for one thing. But there's so many, you know, niches, habitats, tribes. There's so much diversity in Africa. I thought, like, that Africa is resilient. That conceit was wiped away from me in 2008. I can really see that not a hamster is going to survive in Africa. And the reason it was wiped away in 2008, I thought that Africa was resilient and isolated from the, you know, systemically isolated from the rest of the world. It wasn't. The crash on Wall Street within hours got to fruit sellers in Nairobi. So you're talking like guys in, you know, with a little tarpaulin selling watermelons in Nairobi. Within hours, the prices were affected on Wall Street. That shocked me to the core. It meant that Africa is so coupled to our fate that you cannot expect anybody to survive. I mean, think of the Piraha, right? They don't have enough habitat. It's not like, oh, you know, all the guys in the cities die off and then, you know, all the fucking Sami come out of the woodwork and that. The Piraha now have generators. They have electric lights. The Sami are being taught in schools. We're in this uptime next.
You've made the.
I was going to say there's even it's this like the San Bushmen and this other tribe, like the Haas something. I can't remember their name. Sorry. They're wearing like tennis shoes and shorts, but they're still doing, you know, the hunting and gathering. So it's like this culture has literally touched everything. Like nothing is untouched.
But I posted one of the things of those guys, and his dad is still, I mean, he's fucking riding a donkey, which is very non-son. But his son is going overseas to become an engineer. So
yeah, that was sad.
Yeah, so it's like that's how fucking bad it is. And there's guys like Bill Gates and stuff and Elon Musk. There's like, they don't want to leave a single one of these bastards behind. We've got no resilience. There's no diversity. There's no diversity of thought. There's no diversity of income. There's no diversity of sustenance. We're entirely coupled to this giant future. This is what it's shown. This is one of the messages that people are not getting out of this pandemic is we're far too closely coupled. But it's like the Threads movie. The Threads said, you know, we're all coupled by these threads. And so, and what the movie was about was threads was saying in the Cold War, it seemed like nuclear war was coming. All those threads are going to break. And they say without those threads, people are pretty well fucked. But no, those threads are so extensive now. This mycelium web of this horrendous global economy leaves no one untouched. There's no one now that can survive without a buck. You know, earning that fucking dollar, that Yankee dollar that comes from the slave system. It's a slave planet. So it's, you know, if somebody survives, it's all bets are off where they come from, right? I mean, you can make some broad assumptions, like if you live in a big urban conurbation like New York, you're fucked. There's no way you're going to survive. Even the collapse of global industrial civilization or the flipping, you by getting in your SUV and getting on a freeway and trying to get out, it's like you are toast, man, toast. But as for, you know, there aren't people really left up in Rwanda, you know, with Jane Goodall talking to the gorillas and stuff. And then, you know, everything's a park. If you see animals and stuff, they on somebody's game farm or they on a national park. It's like there's no wilderness left, man.
And I blame all those charities and those missionaries that started the works hundreds of years ago. They started to spread this globalism far before the industry appeared. It's this so-called educating the savages and Christianizing them or whatever religion, and then followed by all the web of dependency on goods that started to flow as clothes and stuff. But the perverse action of those so-called NGOs that are so-called charities, I mean, who are trying to get education, toilets, healthcare, contraception, whatever they're trying, and they're very, you know, being good, I don't know, there's a word, do-gooder type of attitude. And that, I mean, I have seen it on and on with colleagues of mine who went working as doctors in those countries to try to bring the good medicine, and just the perversion of stopping women from breastfeeding and giving them formula for their babies, and all under the cover of doing good. It's horrible. It's everywhere. You are totally right. I mean, I can't see any part of the world that hasn't got it now. They've all got it.
Well, it's our industrial cult, and the cult needs recruits. So from the beginning, from 10,000 years ago, it's been sending out recruits to basically draw people into the cult, and we're getting to the end game. There's no one left outside the cult. So if you go and look at Livingston, it's perverse because Livingston was a do-gooder. You know, not a lot of people know this, but Livingston was an abolitionist. His primary aim was to end slavery. He didn't know that the whole of his culture is a slave system, and his culture wouldn't work without it. He was a good Victorian Briton. He didn't ever enter his comprehension that Victorian Britain only exists because of slavery. That he thought Victorian Britain was good. But that's how fucked up everybody is. They actually think that good is bad and bad is good. But anyway, Livingston went to Africa and he wanted to find a trade route up the Zambezi. He said, well, how does finding a trade route up the Zambezi, you know, stop slavery? Well, he was right. It did stop slavery. What trade does is, if he knew, and he stated this, that his aim was to find a route. If he can find a route into the interior for traders, then traders will set up trading establishments and markets. And one of the things sold in the markets will be Christian religion. And when enough people have bought Christian religion, then they'll give up slavery. And he was right. But what he didn't understand was Christianity was a new and perfected form of slavery. And the markets themselves that he brought in there to get rid of the cancer were more cancer. So yeah, just absolutely to your point. But anyway, it leaves us all in the same lifeboat. And so if anybody, you know, I hope I got this point across in the manifesto, in that kind of analogy of the lifeboats, is we're in the third lifeboat that I put there. So we're in the cabal lifeboat. Is that there are a bunch of guys, and I know this because of my past history, is they very well aware of where we are, right? If you think they're all dumb and not responding to climate change because of some puerile nonsense about how greedy they are and stuff, it's like you've misunderstood. They know better than you the situation we're in, right? You think they haven't taken plans. I've seen them do it. I've seen them do the plans. They've been at this for fucking since the 1960s. They are so far ahead of you and all your little, you know, anti-tech revolution, TED style, or your XR type, you know, prop up the system or whatever. It's like, and this is what they're doing. They know only a very few people make it through the filter, and they're planning it so that they do it, right? They are educated as Neoplatonists. They're fundamentally Neoplatonists, and they taught it in places like Harvard and Yale and these Ivy League things. They taught about the noble lie. And the noble lie was Plato. I don't think it was Socrates. I think it was straight out of Plato. And they're saying you fob off for their own good. You do this paternalistic thing where you fob off the masses and make them think they have democracy and they have control. And then behind the scenes, you manipulate all the, you know, pull all the threads. And that's the playbook that they're operating from. Now,
this is
Plato thought it was all good and roses, and it all, you know, it was all made the farm all work nicely, and then it was all, you know, like Windsor Castle and some kind of nice thing. But like when we're heading to, they didn't understand. Plato and those guys didn't fully understand about overshoot and about a Malthusian catastrophe. But when you get to a Malthusian catastrophe, is what do the farmers do? They cull off all the excess. And they're doing that. They're doing it in so many ways while everybody thinks that they're in charge. And you get people like Russell Brandon that are actually contributing to the problem. Because what they're doing is they're putting out this message, people like Mombayo and stuff like that. They're putting out this message that, oh, you know, these people are shocking, terrible, and stuff like that. And hidden within there is the assumption that we can do something about it. That there is some right way that we can get to, that this can be reformed and stuff. The cabal needs that narrative. They need to keep people's hope. They need it to disguise their real intent and to disguise the culling. The culling's been going on for a long time. There are various ways that they're doing it. So you can't tell the sheep this because you're automatic conspiracy theorists. The conspiracies are real. I've seen them from the inside.
Well, how
so
could
anyway, you're in that third lifeboat. So to make it, you're going to have to be freaking skillful.
I often wondered how a guy like Russell Brand could still continue to talk about the shit he's talking about, like everything, you know, the pandemic, politicians, psychopaths, everything. Why would he still have 1 million or I don't know how many followers, and that he could be allowed? It would never be censored. I mean, all the stuff he's talking, it has to be facilitated in some way. He's playing a role. It's you know, it's obvious.
Yeah, these guys are being used, but I think Russell Brand is a very nice guy, and I'm sure he's got a very pure heart. But he's not smart enough to see his contribution to the plan. He thinks it's the same as Michael Moore and all of these guys. Chris Hedges, to a certain extent, is that certainly Noam Chomsky, is they are actually all conservatives, and they think that, you know, you can shame the system into reform, but you know, we're on Melville's lifeboat. The cannibalism has been going on for a while on the quiet, and so, you know, it's like you're keeping the guys asleep. So anyway, from our point of view, if anybody is like, I don't want those elites to survive, but as things stand, they are the ones slated to survive. So if you, but the way the counter to it is, two can play at that game. They have their own cabal and secret networks and societies and stuff, and so yeah, there's nothing to stop the little people doing it too, and that's what the Extinctionati is.
Go on, Gary.
No, go on, Tom. It's all right, because I'm a bit off topic. You go.
Sorry, yeah, there's just a lot of points there. I just wanted to go back just to the part about when you were talking about Livingstone and in Africa and things. Did you see that thing I posted? There's a group it was a bunch of guys who are like right wing. I guess they're the the dissident right. I think they like to. They're a hodgepodge, so they're a mix of different right-wing people. It was that one about Ted.
Yeah, I saw that.
Ted
Yeah,
and his yeah. I just thought there was some interesting points in their conversation later on in the conversation. They were talking about back in, you know, how people in, say, you know, like medieval times and things, because they weren't working all the time, although they were like, you could argue from our, although it's just, you know, I mean, from our modern perspective, it's probably, we can't put ourselves in their mind because our minds are different now. But they were like, we always have these films showing, oh, you know, some guy came like, on a horseback in the village and set fire to everything, you know, and they killed everyone, you know, and, you know, quashed them under the boot. But that's probably a lot of the time just bollocks. I mean, a lot of the time the little people were incredibly happy. And like I was thinking about, like at Christmas time, you know, everybody came and they were all together as one under the Lord. Everybody knew their place, but they were happier, you know, and they didn't work that much. They only worked a small amount of the year, like hardly any, like, I don't know, a lot less than we work these days, you know, probably, I don't know, 2/3 of the year were they actually doing hard physical labor, but they were happy and they were under a feudal lord, you know, it was feudalism, but was that really slavery?
Yes, so it's subtle. So Klaus Schwab's vision is a feudal vision. So those guys are not actually right. They're missing a crucial point. I didn't think much of those guys or their thinking. It's kind of passé, but they're wrong on that point about the feudal lord rides in and burns people's things like it is in the movie. It's like there's a subtle difference. And it's kind of like what you say, we can't understand those people. Well, I understand them because Africa and South Africa that I grew up in was feudal. And so I know what it's like in the mind of a serf, right? And so they're missing something absolutely diabolical, is that the Lord would ride into the village like that on a horseback and be an absolute ogre. And here's the thing, this is the bit they don't know. The villagers would love it and support it. So that's a bit too very hard to get your head around. But I'll give you an example. Is that on a friend of mine when I was a kid, a friend of mine had a farm, and around about Christmas time, some of the imagine it's a feudal thing. You have a black village, they run the farm, they're the laborers on the farm and stuff like that, and then you have the plantation house which they live in. Around about Christmas, they had all this, you know, goodies and stuff in the storeroom that they're going to give out to all the laborers, and so we're talking thousands of people, and somebody broke in. A few guys broke in and stole all the goodies, and so here's the thing: they call in the police, they ride into the village and stuff, and all the elders in the village and the people, they gave up the guys that did it, and the police put them over the front of a truck and, you know, caned them half to death, with the support of the villagers. And you see, you've got to get your head around what's going on there. Is that the villagers are completely into their slavery, right? It's part of the bargain. They're complicit in it. So that doesn't come across in the movies because guys in Hollywood and in the BBC and that, they don't have access to that bit of knowledge. Is they always have, what they have wrong in those scenes is that the guys ride in and he's the muscle and all the villagers are against them, saying like, you know, I say the king is a rogue. Oh, seize that man. No, nobody says that this man is a rogue. They say, John Tyler, he's a fucking rogue. I saw him poaching on the king's land. And they hand over the poor sap to the king and rejoice when he's put in stocks and whip. They throw the fruit at the guy in the stocks. And that's, they never get that because that's a little bit too close to home. That's a little bit subversive if you put that in your movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly. You say everybody's bought into it, and they're like, we've got to sacrifice someone, you know, for the greater good, as it were. Or they feel like, yeah, you know, they're so wedded to it. It's
they're being exploited unknowingly. You see, as white feudal lords, we knowingly exploited this because you just do it by experiment. The guys came to Africa and they weren't going to, like, you know, share. So they were just like, how do you actually treat these people so that they're compliant? And you just do it by experiment, by trial and error. And what eventually you find is that we're primates and we have this fantastic sense of debt guilt. So we have this idea of obligation and debt, and so you manipulate that. They're all manipulating that primate brain all the time. And so, you know, people, if you don't pay your debt to, like, Bank of America, people have a visceral response to you. It's like even people that know that the banking system is evil, that the Federal Reserve was set up by the banks to just basically suck blood out of people, if they will diss you. If you are, you know, if you're a guy, young guy, and you tell some prospective woman that you're trying to date, and you say, yeah, I've got huge debts. You see how she treats you, and you say, like, and you know what, I'm not going to pay those debts. Well, the room clears out. They'll fucking haul you by the ear to the police. Even anarchists will do it, because it's our debt obligation is so big in our primate brain. Look at Franz de Waal's work and stuff, and you see how scary it is. But what's hidden behind the Milgram experiments and things like that is that they're manipulating that sense of obligation and guilt and stuff like that. Anyway, we better round it off, huh?
Yeah, I just wanted to make two quick suggestions. That Sophie made a point a little while ago about people not having the fortitude to read the entire manifesto, you know, because of the length of it. And that, is it worthwhile making a shortened version for, you know, the manifesto for dummies? You know,
well, I was hoping that would be engaging enough to draw people in. If it's not engaging enough to draw people in, then I kind of failed. But I thought, you know, you're going to lose a lot of people who say, "Oh, this is junk," straight off. Those people you're never going to get. And so you're well rid of them, right? They're kind of lightweights. But you really only want the people that go, "Holy fuck, is this for real?" You see, we know
the other thing.
You have to imagine it as somebody coming in clean, right?
Yeah, no, that's all right. I just thought I'd bring that up just to address what Sophie said. The other thing was the people in Slovenia and also Sandy Shellers. Is there some way to maybe get a little hint of the manifesto through them, get a little bit of wider? Like I was thinking of, you know, in the Slovenian for one of his videos where he opened a book, and it's got a comic book inside. You know, it's a serious book, but when you open it up, he's reading a comic, and you know, you could imagine a scene like that where he opens up a book and it's just got a glimpse of the manifesto, and then, you know, he doesn't have just to that kind of subtle thing to draw people in. And then with Sandy, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I'm engaging with them, and they're reading and reviewing it. The deal I've got is that we'll do an interview based on all of the objections and stuff and comments. So yeah, that's the deal. And as to Sandy, I was planning to, if everybody approves it, and if everybody approves it in the draft in the meeting, the Western meeting, then I'd just send an update to Sandy and say this is where we're at.
Yeah. Oh, that's
I
good.
also wanted to do the same to Faulty, but I think the one to Faulty is just kind of like goodbye and thank all of it.
No, I was going to actually say this earlier. Send it to Faulty and ask him if he wouldn't mind doing you a favour and getting it published on XR's. Don't bother about Veneratio 5. Just dump him. Don't submit it there. Just get Faulty to get somebody in XR to post it on that sub so that it's there.
Yeah, so
because
yeah,
anyone he can get anyone to do that. The Veneratio 5 won't let you put it there, or
no,
any
but
of us.
anybody could. We don't need. So he's
That's what I mean.
persona non
Anybody
grata
can, but it's going to be one of Faulty's people because all of us are disqualified from the place, and I don't think there's much point in appealing to.
I think that I'll approach Veneratio 5 and ask him if we can do it, but otherwise. No, I think we should post it on the Facebook thing, and in general, just basically stalk them a bit to make sure.
Yeah, I was thinking of like just printing off a hard copy, or make it into a book or something, and actually send it physically. I think it's more powerful if you go and like, I don't know, hand deliver it. Go up to XR's head office or something. I don't know, like send it to Faulty in the post or something. I don't know what his address is, but like, because on the internet it's so easy to just flick. You're so distracted and just shit flick through stuff. You're not gonna like read it, but if it's there, like a physical hard copy, like, you know, print it off really nicely, and like, you know, just like, yeah, here's a book. Like, read that. Like, that's more powerful, I think. 'Cause people are more inclined, like, or just like print off loads of them and just spam them, like deliver them through post.
I can put it up to Google Books, I think.
Yeah, but there's a problem there. You're using the internet a lot in it. There's a lot of links. So if you want to print that, it will have to reflect that, because there's a lot of documents and articles and references that will totally be lost if you.
Yeah, you'd have to put footnotes. Yeah, it would be more.
I think I picked up you that you were thinking of doing a video about it too, which could be also very good, because
not the manifesto, but just what the flipping is.
Yeah, or about the flipping. Yeah.
But I mean, I think once we've got it all approved, we should just, once we've agreed that it goes out, then I think we should go and try and spam it all over the place, and just see, you know, go troll people when it, you know, especially you know, basically do it as a false flag thing where you say, hey, have a look at these freaking idiots, and then everybody goes to have a good laugh at us, and then one or two people go, hang on, are these people serious? They're like, no, I don't think they're serious. No, I think they're serious. That kind of thing. Yeah, exposing it in jest, I think, is quite a good idea as a false flag. But anyway, we must. What I'm hoping is maybe we discuss this on the next weekend. But I'm hoping people will take ownership of like a platform. So, you know, we go out and just try and put stuff that we keep the Extinctionati on on Reddit as the main hub, and then just kind of like repost and shitpost and draw attention on things like Facebook and podcasts and stuff like that. Just to draw attention to it. But let's talk about that next weekend. Did we covered all the topics, didn't we? Covered most of the agenda.
I think we did a pretty good job.
Well,
you want to have a
long one, very long one, but anyway, let's round it off now. Quickly. Okay, thanks for staying for so long, everybody. And so let's just pause and first to. Okay, I will do a shit post to Paul. I think I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, you've got that's the point we didn't talk about.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We'll see you this afternoon. Bye. I
Yeah.
stopped recording. Bye.
Okay. Bye.